Tell me when you're ready.
You're ready to look right here.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good morning, Vince. We got a big day today. Today we're going to be starting on all the fiberglass work. So up till now we've been doing all this prep work on the water tank lid and on the cover for the anchor locker, but now we're really going to be starting to put it all back together again. So we've been preparing the anchor locker lid for fiberglassing. There's a split in the fiberglass here, and we've ground out on either side so that we can lay fiberglass across there and build this back up so it'll have strength again. This is where the hinges were, which you would think the break would have been here, but for some reason it's at that point. And I think that's the point between the more flexible material around the edges and the stiffer material where the coring was, and that's why it broke where it did. So the other thing that's been done is we've sanded out the inside of this. It looks pretty rough, but it's actually been sanded fairly smoothly. And we're going to coat that with epoxy and thicken the epoxy and then put new coring in there. The other thing that we've done is that this is where the latch was to hold the lid down. And we're going to take and fiberglass this without a core around here so that previously this was just open to the core, so water would get through the latch, which the latch had a drain in it. The drain would go into the core, and that's why your core rotted out. So that's what we're doing on the anchor locker lid today. So if we look on the outside of the hatch, you can see there's a crack here. And there's another crack that you can't see very well with the camera, but that runs along the edge of the hinge. Now we're going to see that from inside. So from the inside, this is that edge of the hinge right here, and it runs up through the edge of the hatch. The other crack that we saw runs right along here where we can't really get to it and reinforce it from the inside. But we are going to glass up this edge and across here and lock this in. I'm experimenting right now with trying to get the alignment between the two pieces on the other side of the crack, and I'm using a clamp to try to pull those pieces into a line. Now whether they're going to stay in line long enough for us to glass them is another story. We'll have to figure out if this doesn't work how we're going to do that. A lot of the material suppliers these days, you get really good online technical support. This came from Jamestown Distributors. They have really good support for their products. Their Total Boat Works. West System has really good advisors. MAS Epoxy, which I really like because it doesn't have an amine blush. They have really good advisors. And so throughout the process, whenever we're sending a question about what we're going to do and how we're going to do it, I've checked in with some of these material manufacturers and say, well, what do you recommend for this particular task? This is how I'm thinking of doing it. Any tweaks I should do? So we're going to be using three materials when we start to do the fiberglass work. If we were a professional boat shop, we'd be vacuum bagging all this together. In other words, drawing all the parts together with vacuum. We don't have that capability, so we're going to be using just old school, putting weight on it. So the three materials we're using is we're going to be using a woven cloth or tape, and we'll be using that to tie between the bottom of the hatch and the top of the hatch. This is going to go through the joints in the foam. The second material we're using is a biaxial cloth, and it's biaxial in that there's fibers running this way, fibers running this way, and they're stitched together. They're just linear, and because they're linear, they're not woven. There's no way for them to stretch out, so it's a stiffer. It's just a lot less stretchy. And since we're only going to be putting a couple layers of fiberglass down, having that reduction in stretchiness is a good thing. The boat was built with non-directional cloth, and non-directional fabric tends to stretch a lot more, which is why that hatch was fatigued and failing, besides for the fact that the core completely rotted out. The peel ply is a polyester cloth, and the reason you use the peel ply is to make sure you don't end up with excess resin in your mix. the peel ply absorbs the excess resin. So when you push down on the fiberglass to squeegee out the resin, it gets absorbed by the peel ply. We're going to do something that's kind of an old school thing. We're going to put some wax paper over the peel ply, and then that allows us to squeegee without getting stuck and peeling up the peel ply. And so we're going to use that wherever we have material that we want to take away later on, so that we don't end up sticking our weights and everything else into the final material we're making. Okay, so what we've done is we have glued down the foam coring to the existing fiberglass. To make sure it's holding against that fiberglass, we've put down a layer of wax paper as a to break the seal, and then we've put weight on top of that to make sure it's held hard against the underside of the lid. What is the future underside of the lid? That in a professional shop, that would have been done by vacuum bagging. We don't have a vacuum bag. This is old school stuff. Thank you to my wife Barbara for the loan of her bag of mulch.